everyone. Welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is the CEO of Birdwell, a men's and women's clothing brand, which was started in Santa Ana in 1961. He's also held executive positions at brands including Nixon and Electric. Thank you so much for being here today, Eric Crane.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I am such a huge fan of Birdwell, and so is my husband. So I'm so excited to get to talk with you.
I love that.
So you were born in New Jersey and raised in New York. What eventually brought you out to California?
My mom, my mother and father met at a young age surfing, and my mother fell in love with surfing and not necessarily my dad. So they split up when I was quite young, and she just kept chasing waves. So she went from New York to the Jersey Shore, and then from the Jersey Shore to California. And then she just kept going to Hawaii, and she's been in Hawaii for 35 years surfing. She's 77 and still surfs every day in Waikiki.
That's amazing. Yeah. And then after high school, you eventually went to Hawaii to pursue a career in surfing. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I thought growing up in San Clemente, there's such a high level of surfing around, and I really thought that I had a shot, which I didn't, but I thought I did. So I took myself to Hawaii. I was always been a bigger guy, so I thought maybe bigger waves would be a good fit. And I got over there, and it's a pretty funny story of what happened to me when I got there, but happenstance led me to living on pipeline on the North Shore, right like in the lion's den, so to speak, like the biggest, heaviest waves in Hawaii with the best guys in the world. And I had an incredible experience living there. And my mother came to visit me, and apparently she fell in love. So I came back to California to go to art school, and she moved to Hawaii and never looked back.
No way. That's so cool. Who were some of the people that you were associated with when you were living in Pipeline?
Well, I was living at a guy named Benji Weatherly's house. And Benji, his house was like ground zero for what's called the Momentum generation. So Taylor Steele, who made the Momentum films, Kelly Slater, Shane Dorian. I played guitar with Jack Johnson. Basically all of the characters from sort of my generation were sort of posted up there at Benji's house on ground zero.
What an incredible experience. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I read that you started doing some t-shirt artwork and designs for surfboard quivers. So how did you kind of get into art, and what kind of goes into that work?
When I was young, I was always into drawing. And it wasn't until sort of being in Hawaii that I started sort of turning that into making like t-shirt designs. And then at the time, it became really popular for surfers to have designs on their boards that matched across all of their boards. So someone might take 7 boards or 8 boards to Hawaii for the season, and they wanted them all to have a consistent look. So they had basically like a personal brand in the water.
Yeah. So
I started making these designs that could be applied using different colors and things. But, I got my start pre-high school. And when I was like 15, I was working at Stewart Surfboards in San Clemente in the factory. And one of the things I did was like clean up the factory and clean up after the airbrushers. So I used to watch them airbrush, and I became sort of really interested in like the craft of like putting art on surfboards. And so when I would design, for people, I would design things that really could be reproduced, and it made it kind of easy. And so I did a few of those, and just not a lot, just enough to really sort of fall in love with the idea of design. And then there's a guy named Chris Malloy, who's now a pretty well-known filmmaker and commercial director, who was at the time a pro surfer from the same generation, who started talking to me about wanting to pursue photography and graphic design and things like that and make movies. And so, it really opened my mind to the idea of, what could be other adjacent to the surf world, and creative, but just not surfing. So,
yeah. Did you end up making movies?
I did not. No. I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to creative. I've made commercial videos. I've made, short form, like 20-minute, 30-minute films for most of the brands that I've worked for. I do sizzle reels and stuff like that. And I've directed and filmed and edited and all of that. But nothing at the level of Chris. Chris, I would say, is world class.
Wow. That's incredible. You have so many amazing connections. So when you moved back to California, as I mentioned, you work for brands like Nixon, Ocean Pacific, and Electric.
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of look for when you decide to work for a certain company?
I'd like to say that there was more of a formula involved, but I mean, all of those were adjacent to Orange County. I mean, it was all sort of through connections that I had met along the way. And, I had a mantra sort of when I was younger that was like to never say no. And it wasn't necessarily conscious at the time, but it just, now that I look back on it, it's like, I took every opportunity that came. So, because I was a jack of all trades creatively, like I was able to apply my skills to a lot of different brands and situations. And I found myself, with some pretty great opportunities. Arnett led to meeting Kip Arnett and Bruce Beach. So then when Electric started, so they brought me in to help them create that brand. So that's how I was involved there, because we worked together at Arnett. And then I was doing some freelance brand work for OP, which led me to be the CEO, bringing me in-house at one point to run their creative because they liked what I was doing on a freelance basis. And then we sold OP and I had to find another job. And that's a friend of mine named Chad Denena, who had sold advertising to Arnett, was one of the co-founders of Nixon. So he brought me in to work at Nixon. So it's definitely been through relationships and just staying open and putting myself out there that all these different brand opportunities kind of came my way.
Yeah, it sounds like it was an incredible time for brands to start creating or popping up in the surf industry.
Yeah, for sure it was. I mean, there's never a bad time. I don't think if you have a great idea and the passion and ambition, I don't believe people should really listen to everyone who's going to tell them no, because everyone's going to tell you how hard it is. And there's not a lot of people that are going to say go for it. And I think that if you just really dig in and have the moxie to stick it out, like there's never a bad time to start a good brand.
I love that. That's such great inspiration. I also saw a throwback on your Instagram when I was researching you and creeping on it. And I saw a photo of what looked like a game night with people from Nixon. And I actually worked in marketing for Tilly's. So I had a taste of the industry and it was so much fun. But what do you love about working in this industry?
I think that, anytime you can be in an industry that's adjacent to your passions, it definitely helps get you through some darker days. Like, if you're interested in fashion, then working in the fashion industry is, there's fun moments. I mean, work is work, no matter where you work or what you do. But I think that, when things get tough, it's fun to remind yourself of why you're in it. And, the brands that I've worked with over the years have absolutely put community and culture, as a part of a core value. So you asked me like what I look for in brands. I think that, community and culture and attention to that and really understanding that culture is a living thing in a company is important. So Nixon, created some great events to bring their team and their in-house people together to sort of create a collaborative environment. Arnett used to throw historically incredible sales meetings where they invite, hundreds of people, and Nixon as well, hundreds of people from all over the world getting together on one spot and going over product and talking about the market and really just coming together. And those things, like, they create this loyalty in you for the brand because the brand lets you in. So you feel like you're sort of co-authoring the culture of the brand. And once that happens and you feel invested in the culture, then it's like me personally, I was willing to run through walls for these companies after, they sort of let you into the fabric of it. I think if it's too corporate or separate, or you don't feel like you're involved, that you become sort of apathetic and there's a whole, stigma, like with hybrid working now, there's, a lot of remote work. People don't feel involved in the brands that they're with. They don't really feel as connected. They're just sort of like punching in the work and not really feeling invested in the brand success. And so anything you can do to combat that, I think, is a good idea.
Definitely. So how did you come to get connected with Birdwell?
I was doing some consulting for an incredible OC brand named Period Correct, which is like a
no way
automotive. Yeah, automotive lifestyle brand, and I was the interim CEO, doing a fundraise for Brian, the founder, and
Uh-huh.
and one of the owners, Jeff Curl, who's the co-founder of Stance. And on my list was Matt Jacobson, who had just acquired Birdwell. Not just, he had acquired Birdwell in 2014, but I was meant to call him to see if he'd be interested in investing in Period Correct. And after a 20-minute conversation of me pitching him on Period Correct, he's like, look, I'm not interested in investing in Period Correct, but let me tell you about Birdwell. And we ended up having this incredible conversation about all these innovative things he's doing with Birdwell and the market and all that. And then we just sort of talked about life and the business and industry and fashion. We just had this really great conversation. And it was great. He didn't invest in Period Correct. So I crossed his name off the list and I was like, okay, on to the other 30 people I had to call that day. But then 3 weeks later, he called me and he said, look, I really enjoyed our conversation. Would you be interested in partnering with me to run Birdwell? And at the time, I had just sold Electric, and I was enjoying my freedom because I had been shackled to brands for 20 years, like just always identifying with a single brand. And I was doing a lot of consulting and I liked the freedom of it. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to come on, but after getting close to Birdwell and seeing the factory and meeting the people and understanding the heritage and really diving into it, I fell in love.
Yeah. So for listeners who may not know or who aren't familiar with the brand, can you talk a little bit about that heritage?
Sure. In Santa Ana in 1961, Carrie Birdwell Mann started Birdwell in her house. And it started where she was sewing dresses for gals. And then she started making board shorts, and more people came to her for these custom board shorts. And then initially she made them out of canvas and Hawaiian shirts or whatever she could get her hands on. And then eventually they found this like spinnaker nylon, which became sort of the staple for Birdwell. And Carrie figured out how to make them in such a way that they were incredibly durable and they would form to your body after you wore them. And they just became really popular with lifeguards and surfers. And eventually her whole business took over into the board shorts. Her kids started sewing. Her husband was involved. Like the entire family was building this company out of Santa Ana for people. Really, it started in California, like from San Diego all the way up. And then they quickly got into mail order. They're really like one of the world's first direct-to-consumer fashion brands. Before the internet, like they were taking custom orders via ads in a magazine, and they'd had like this little form that you would fill out saying what color you wanted and what fabric you wanted and your size, and you'd mail it in, and then they'd custom make them and send them back to you. Like that was
how cool.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, so innovative. How do they form to your body? That's so interesting.
Yeah, so have you bought a pair of raw denim? Like sort of like unwashed denim. So like, when you get those, they feel a little bit tight to start, but then as you wear them, they sort of stretch where your body stretches, and they sort of bunch where your body bends, and they start to create like this form. So if you don't wash your denim for the first couple of months, which sounds gross, but they do recommend it. If you can almost take them off, and like they'll like, you can see your body form in them because the fabric sort of just stretches and forms and conforms to your shape. So the double layer nylon that we use called surf nil does the same thing in essence. So the more you wear these, the more that they start to sort of take shape to your body.
That's really so interesting. That's really cool. So what were some of the challenges that you initially faced when you first started at Birdwell?
The first challenge was our building. We had been in this building, this factory in Santa Ana, which was a really iconic place, but it was in a state of disrepair. Mm-hmm. And it was going to take millions of dollars to get it up to code and whatnot. And it housed our factory and our warehouse and a little bit of an office. And it was a sad moment, but we decided to sell the business, sell the building. Uh-huh. And so that meant that we had to find somewhere else to put our sewing facility. We moved from warehousing our own stuff to a 3PL, and then we had to find an office for our staff. So, in doing that, it was a logistic challenge, but it was also sort of like an opportunity to sort of remap the entire business model because although they had the previous management have done an incredible job of growing the business from being very small to moving into direct to consumer through Shopify, which is, a software that allows you to do relatively easy e-commerce. There was a lot of operations and sort of vision and strategy in running an apparel business that didn't exist. Like, they were really great at marketing and making product, but there was a lot of inefficiency. So, getting the business profitable by reorganizing the entire back end of the business and then remapping the back end of the business was a huge challenge. And it ended up taking like the first year and a half of my career at Birdwell.
Wow. And you've been there for 3 years?
No, 2.5. Yeah.
2.5. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. How do you balance innovation with staying true to the heritage of Birdwell?
That's a really great question. I think at the core of our values are quality, integrity, and reliability. I think a brand is really a sum of its values. So if we can distill what makes Birdwell great and then think about what people need now and try to solve today's problems, but use the same value stem or root system that got us to where we are, I think that's the most important bit. When it's interesting, a lot of people think of Birdwell as like a heritage sort of retro brand, and it does have that quality, which I absolutely love. But at the end of the day, in 1961, Carrie Birdwell was being innovative, right? She didn't start being retro. She started trying to solve a modern problem with the most advanced way she could. So the quality, her sewing techniques and all that were really advanced for the time. So I would say that innovation is actually one of our core values. But I think over time, you start to trade on your best ofs or your greatest hits. And so that's one of the things I'm really sort of working on is how do we take a stab at modernizing our approach to product while holding on to all of the brand's heritage and really making sure that quality, integrity, and reliability is in everything that we make. So I think staying close to answer your question simply, I think staying close to your values and trying to use the DNA of what made Birdwell special early on to solve modern problems instead of just trading on kitsch and retro forever, because that gets old.
Right. Are there any changes that you're really proud that you've implemented?
Well, yeah, I mean, profitability is always a good one. As a CEO, it's hard. You want to measure, your success on, how many new followers or how much, revenue growth and all that. But I mean, really building the back end to be self-sustaining is probably what I'm most proud of in the short time that I've been there. But, we've also taken some, really nice steps towards having a 4-season product line. Birdwell's been known for being just board shorts for many, many years. So we've introduced a lot of new products that are resonating well with the customer base, like some really great sweaters and jackets. We've got some great pants coming. So, I guess I'm proud of the team that we've been building, and I'm proud of the roadmap that's ahead of us. I'm just really excited for the future of Birdwell, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the future, what are some of your long-term goals for Birdwell?
I think Birdwell, the way I think of it is the shoe, and the shoe that Birdwell is Birdwell's America's heritage beach brand, right? That footprint that it deserves to be, on par with like Filson or Dickies in workwear, and like a heritage brand, like heritage denim brand Levi's, heritage workwear Dickies, Carhartt. I think heritage beach brand like Birdwell very much should be known worldwide as America's heritage beach brand. So in growing to that footprint, there's probably, $50, $60 million of growth in revenue, but there's also, product lines and, housewares and kids and women's. And, we released a beach chair last summer that went nuts, and we sell a lot of towels, and I did candles this year, and they did incredible. So I feel like the roadmap for Birdwell is to really sort of grow into the lifestyle brand that it is meant to be, and to start to compete with some of the brands that capture that mind share now. Like, There's some bigger brands out there like Marine Layer and Faraday and Outer Known that are, on paper much bigger than Birdwell, but lack the heritage and the history and authenticity that Birdwell carries. So I think the future of Birdwell is to really sort of claim its position as America's heritage beach brand born in Orange County.
Yeah. God, that got me like excited. I was like, yeah, do it. That sounds amazing. So Birdwell has amazing collaborations with brands like Seeger, Pendleton, and even with the Grateful Dead. How do you guys decide who to collaborate with? And do we have any collaborations that you can shout out that are coming up?
Yeah. I think because we've been around for so long and it's really, it really hasn't deviated from its course. Like Birdwell, if anything, has been sort of very pure to its own mission. So there's a lot of fans out there for Birdwell. So sometimes we reach out to brands based on either a product line or an audience that we'd like to get closer to. But most times it's like the phone rings. People reach out to us. Like we sort of just vet. They come in. I personally take care of all the collaborations because I feel like it's such a multifaceted consideration. Like, is the brand right? Is their product right? Is their audience right for us right now? Do we have the bandwidth and resource to do a good job with it? Like, do we have a shared vision and goal? Like it's a relationship. So each collaboration is mini marriage and we have to have the same goals. We have to have the same, energy. We have to match each other's intensity. It can be a small collab without a lot of energy as long as we're both on the same page. So getting expectations outlined, sort of getting the project scoped, is sort of my favorite part. It's a really classic business development, sort of piece. But I mean, Birdwell's past collabs, it's crazy. Like some of the brands that we've worked with, it's unbelievable. And some of the ones coming down the pipe are incredible. Like next year is packed with collabs.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just share a couple. We're going to do denim with Lee Jeans. We've got a women's capsule coming with Cynthia Rowley. We've got a fitness collection coming with 10,000s. We've got a fashion surf shop concept coming with Todd Snyder in collaboration with John Hardy. We're launching a company called GoRuck out of Florida next week. And they make ruck packs, which are rucking is when you put a plate in a backpack and you sort of like get stronger. It's like a sort of a Navy SEAL inspired workout that's kind of taking the country by storm. And so we're doing a ruck pack and board short release with them next week. We did an incredible collab this August with Imogen and Willie out of Nashville, who also makes their clothes in LA, but it's a denim brand, fashion brand that was really in love with Birdwell. So they did 15-year anniversary with 15 collabs with 15 brands that are made in the US. So I don't know. We just have opportunity to do some really great partnerships, which is the funnest part, the most fun in my job. There's actually a company in Orange County called Myers Manx. Have you heard of it?
I don't think so.
It's insane. So do you remember the old Volkswagen dune buggies that are like fiberglass and they're brightly colored and they're like, some have like metal flake and they're just incredible, like Volkswagen platform dune buggies. But there's this guy, I think it's Bruce Myers, maybe, I don't know, but it was founded in California and it's owned now by this incredible human named Philip Serafin in Truesdale Ventures. He bought it and to resurrect it as this like sort of modern brand. And so he's built this lifestyle brand around re-releasing these dune buggies from the 60s and 70s, which are awesome. But then he's gone ahead and he's developed this electric platform. So it's like the Tesla of dune buggies. So imagine one of those old dune buggies with a Volkswagen engine, but it's completely electric. It was on the cover of Motor Trend magazine. It's amazing. They've got design offices in Irvine and a showroom in Costa Mesa.
How have I never heard of it? This is so cool.
I have no idea, but you got to look them up because we're doing a collab with those guys, which is amazing. They're like the Birdwell of cars. And so I just feel like it's a marriage made in heaven. They're like a California lifestyle brand in the automotive industry, and they're really doing some amazing things.
So you guys are you going to do a Birdwell car?
Yeah, we're going to do a Birdwell styled car. And then we have an apparel line that we developed using their branding, which is going to be awesome.
God, how cool. Well, there's so much amazing stuff to look forward to at Birdwell, but We are coming to the end of our time. But before I let you go, I have 3 final questions for you that we call the Thoughtful 3. So first off, obviously everything we've talked about, you're such an incredible leader, but how have your views on leadership evolved over time?
Yeah, I'd say the most significant shift in me internally was realizing that leadership was not about increasing or trying to level up my performance. It was about inspiring others to level up their performance and to teach other people how to seek. Because I think if we can teach the value of curiosity and self-improvement, and then have a shared vision, like that's when the entire team becomes effective. And if the entire team's effective, then I become successful. And I think when I was younger, I thought that the harder I worked and the more that I knew and the more that I did, that would make me a great leader and be successful. And I think that paradigm shift has really unlocked a lot for me.
Definitely. And then what was the best advice that you received when you were first starting out?
Never say no.
Yeah.
commit and figure it out, don't give up. I just think that, some people are scared of hard work or thinking that like things will be tough. And I think that sticking things out and working through that phase teaches you about yourself and you learn exponentially more.
Definitely. And then lastly, what qualities or characteristics do you feel have been instrumental in your success?
Lately, it's listening.
Interesting.
I spent a lot of my career talking, and I feel like the better listener that I've become has made me a better leader.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was so much fun. I had such a great time getting to talk with you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Of course.